They say music is universal, that a good melody is timeless. But what happens when two songs sound just a little too familiar? What happens when the joy of a hit becomes the burden of a lawsuit? Today, we unravel one of the most talked about legal battles in music history: Ed Sheeran's copyright trial over his global hit, Thinking Out Loud, a Grammy-winning love ballad, an accusation involving Marvin Gaye's classic Let's Get It On, and a courtroom showdown that had the entire industry holding its breath. This isn't just a story about one song, it's about the future of music itself. The love song that changed everything. When Ed Sheeran released Thinking Out Loud in 2014, it was more than just a chart topper. It was the kind of song that played at weddings, lived on playlists, and earned Sheeran a Grammy for Song of the Year. But behind that soulful performance was a deeply personal inspiration. Co-written with his friend Amy Wadge, the track was a tribute to enduring love, reportedly inspired by Sheeran's grandparents. With its simple progression and emotional delivery, it felt authentic, timeless. Yet, that very simplicity would later become the target of a multi-million-dollar lawsuit. But why would such a pure love song become the center of one of music's most controversial legal showdowns? In 2016, the estate of Ed Townsend, Marvin Gaye's co-writer on Let's Get It On, filed a lawsuit. Their claim? That Thinking Out Loud copied melodic, harmonic, and rhythmic compositions from the 1973 soul classic. The songs weren't identical, but Townsend's heirs argued the feel, the groove, the vibe, the chord progression was too similar to ignore. They believed Sheeran had borrowed more than just inspiration, and they weren't alone. Musicologists chimed in on both sides. Some pointed out the likeness in rhythm and progression. Others argued these were building blocks common to countless songs. This wasn't the first copyright case involving a pop hit, but it might have been the most watched. What followed was a legal spectacle, one that would test the boundaries of copyright law and artistic freedom. Into the courtroom. By April 2023, the case reached a Manhattan federal court. Sheeran, dressed modestly, looked more like a songwriter than a star. But the stakes were sky high, potential damages in the tens of millions, not to mention the shadow cast over his career. Plaintiffs presented side-by-side audio comparisons. They claimed that the overlap between the two tracks was too significant to be coincidental. Sheeran's team countered that the shared chords and rhythm weren't protectable. In music, some patterns are so common, they are practically part of the language. The trial wasn't just legal, it was deeply personal. And then Sheeran did something no one expected. Sheeran picks up the guitar. In a dramatic turn, Ed Sheeran took the stand and brought out his guitar. He didn't just talk about the song, he played it. He walked the jury through the songwriting process, showed how the melody came together, how he'd been inspired by Van Morrison, not Marvin Gaye. He even mashed up Thinking Out Loud with other hits, using the same chord progression, proving just how widespread those structures were. It wasn't just testimony. It was a masterclass in songwriting. Observers said, "Oh, the moment was powerful, authentic." It helped humanize a legal debate and reminded the jury of the creativity at the core of the issue. But would it be enough to convince them? After 6 intense days and just 3 hours of deliberation, the jury delivered its verdict. Ed Sheeran was not guilty of copyright infringement. The courtroom erupted. Sheeran hugged his legal team. Relief, exhaustion, and vindication all rolled into one moment. He'd won. But he hadn't emerged unscathed. The verdict was more than just a personal win. It was a message to the industry that basic musical building blocks weren't off limits. That inspiration wasn't the same as imitation. But the trial had taken a toll, and the cost wasn't just financial. Ed Sheeran's legal defense didn't come cheap. While the exact figures remain undisclosed, estimates suggest legal fees, expert witnesses, and court costs may have run well into the 7-figure range. Defending a case of this magnitude, especially in a U.S. federal court, requires a team of high-profile lawyers, musicologists, and PR strategists. For Sheeran, it wasn't just about protecting his reputation, it was about preserving his livelihood. Every court appearance, legal consultation, and piece of evidence submitted added to the mounting costs. Even though he won, the financial burden was immense. While Sheeran was defending his reputation, something heartbreaking happened. His grandmother passed away in Ireland. Because of the trial, he missed her funeral. He later spoke about it with visible pain. "I wanted to be with my family, but I had to be in court defending something I knew I didn't do," he said. The pressure, the media scrutiny, and the weight of being accused of artistic theft, it was more than just a legal process. It was an emotional one. And for Sheeran, it wasn't the first time he faced accusations like these. Ed Sheeran, being a pure soul and a beautiful person in nature, would have struggled with such proceedings. A painful history of accusations. Just a year earlier, Sheeran had been involved in another copyright lawsuit, this time over Shape of You. Once again, he was accused of lifting someone else's work. And once again, the court ruled in his favor. But the pattern was clear. Big hits attract big lawsuits. Whether out of genuine concern or opportunism, Sheeran was becoming a frequent target. Is this the price of success in the modern music world? It certainly appears that way, a ticket for other artists to try for a big payday on the back of Ed Sheeran's well-earned success. The trial raised a larger question. Can you really copyright a feel, a vibe, a chord progression? Musicians have long borrowed from each other. That's how genres evolve. But where is the line between influence and infringement? Sheeran's case became a litmus test. And while he won, many believe the conversation is far from over. Some even fear that these lawsuits might stifle creativity. So what happens now? Where does the music industry go from here? Just days after the verdict, Sheeran made a surprise appearance at BBC Radio 1's Big Weekend. Fans were stunned. Here he was, back on stage, guitar in hand, smiling. He didn't say much. He let the music do the talking. To some, it felt like a victory lap. To others, a reminder that despite the chaos, the art lives on. That performance sent a message. Ed Sheeran was not broken. He was recharged. It was a defiant moment of joy after months of stress. And it showed that his true love, the music, hadn't changed one bit. But beneath the performance was a deeper message. Sheeran wasn't just back, he'd never left. The courtroom victory was a turning point, but it also left deep scars. Sheeran has become a symbol of the modern artist navigating a minefield of legal and creative risks. While fans see a cheerful performer, those close to the industry know he's also a businessman forced to think like a lawyer. Behind every new song lies a careful calculation. Is this too similar to something else? Could this land me back in court? And yet, despite his legal victories, some believe another case might be just around the corner. As long as Sheeran remains one of the most streamed artists on the planet, the chances of new allegations surfacing can't be ruled out. The legal system now has precedent on his side, but that doesn't always prevent someone from trying their luck. Critics warn that unless copyright law is clarified further, high-profile musicians will remain vulnerable to endless litigation. Sheeran himself has said he records every songwriting session now, just in case he needs to defend his creativity again. Thanks for watching, and remember, behind every song, there's a story worth telling. Ed Sheeran's case reminds us that the legal system doesn't just influence contracts and royalties, it can shape creativity itself. As fans, we rarely see the tug-of-war behind our favorite songs, but for artists, the risk of being sued over a melody is very real. These aren't just headlines, they're warnings echoing through every studio and songwriting session. The conversation doesn't end with a verdict, it starts there. Because every decision like this influences what gets written, what gets recorded, and what the future of music will sound like. So the next time you hit play, think about what went into that song, not just the talent, but the tension. And consider that the artist you love might be fighting a battle you never knew about. Share this video with someone who loves music as much as you do. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive. And if you're a musician, producer, or creative, keep creating fearlessly because your story might be the next one we tell.